My husband surprised me by saying I should go back to my parents' house because my parents are already living in our house. I felt shocked by his sudden words, but he seemed to think he was being reasonable. He said, "Do you have a problem with that? Don't argue with me. I'm fine with divorcing you if you do." Lately he had been distant and unkind, and I had my own complaints. I had been thinking about divorcing him too, but I didn't think it was fair for him to kick me out of our home. I thought to myself, I'm the one paying $1,800 for our expenses. Does he even remember that? As I looked at him in shock, he got angry and said, "Leave this house now. My parents won't feel good if you're here." I didn't really get why I had to go, but I said, "Okay, I'll take all my stuff with me." Once I agreed, he seemed happy and said, "Then do it," and walked away. Right away, I called a shop to sell my things. My name's Emily, and I live with my husband, Robert, who's 5 years older than me. We met through mutual friends, and our first hangout turned into spending the whole day together. Robert mentioned he wanted to be a voice actor, and I was impressed by his deep voice. I've always liked soothing voices, so I felt drawn to him. It seemed like he felt the same because we exchanged numbers and decided to hang out more. Before we knew it, we were dating, even though we never really talked about it. I had just graduated from college and started working, so dating someone more mature seemed exciting. My friend Ashley was worried about the 5-year age gap, but I reassured her that it wasn't a big deal. I liked Robert a lot, and he felt the same about me, so I wasn't concerned. Eventually, Ashley agreed, trusting my judgment. Robert and I dated for about 3 years, and then he brought up the idea of getting married. I had already told my parents about him and his age, so they were excited to meet him. With their expectations in mind, I often wondered when he would propose. He ended up proposing during one of his usual visits to my apartment, where we just hang out and relax. It wasn't the most romantic setting, but it felt like something Robert would do, and I was okay with that. When he asked, I simply said, "Sure, let's get married." So maybe we were both a little casual about it. After that, we visited each other's parents, but I didn't really connect with Robert's parents. When we went to Robert's family home, it was filled with what looked like old-fashioned items, but they seemed to be fake. When we met Robert's parents, they were wearing expensive clothes and lots of flashy jewelry. They seemed like they were trying too hard to look rich. Our tastes and values were very different, and I didn't think we would get along. Robert's mom even made a rude comment about my appearance, which hurt my feelings. I was surprised that the parents of the man I wanted to marry acted like this. But in the end, it's Robert and I who are getting married. If I don't like his parents, I don't have to spend much time with them. So I decided not to let it bother me too much. After we got married and moved into our condo, Robert seemed worried about something. "Hey, who was that woman in the blue dress at our wedding?" "Which woman in a blue dress?" There were a few guests at our wedding who wore blue, so I couldn't figure out who he was talking about based on that alone. "You know, the one who gave a speech as your best friend." "Are you talking about Ashley?" "Yes, she was wearing a blue dress." When Robert said this, he seemed a bit uneasy. "What's wrong with Ashley?" I asked, confused by his reaction. "Oh, it's not a big deal. The other day, I thought I saw someone who looked like her when I was going to work. That's when I remembered she gave a speech as your best friend at the wedding." I was confused by Robert's sudden interest in Ashley and his flustered demeanor, but he just laughed it off and went to his room before I could ask more. A little while later, Ashley called me with some news. "Listen, Emily, my boyfriend's coming back to the US next year." Ashley had been dating her boyfriend since high school. They'd known each other since elementary school, but he moved away in middle school. They kept in touch through letters and finally reunited in high school when he confessed his feelings for her. I always loved hearing Ashley's love stories. Despite her boyfriend being away working at an international branch for a few years, they stayed close and communicated regularly. "Do you think he might propose once he's back, and then you guys will get married?" "Oh, Emily, you're always jumping to conclusions. Just make sure to invite me to the wedding. I promise I'll give a heartfelt speech." "Of course. After the beautiful speech you gave at your wedding, I'll definitely need you to do the same for mine." Don't set the bar too high. We chuckled together as we sipped our tea. Our conversations flowed easily, and we trusted each other completely. Whenever one of us had a problem, the other was always there, ready to lend a listening ear. Around this time, I began to notice that Robert was coming home later and later. "Working late again today?" Yeah, you think I shouldn't work or something. Even after we got married, Robert held onto his dream of becoming a voice actor. He was working hard to pursue his passion, but it meant he had to take on part-time jobs to make ends meet. Unfortunately, all the money he earned from those jobs went straight into his voice acting classes, so I had to cover all our living expenses. This meant we couldn't really save up together. As time went on, I realized that Robert wasn't willing to give up on his dream for the sake of our family. I started to worry about how much overtime Robert was putting in at his part-time job. It added to my concerns about our financial situation. Hey, haven't you been working too much lately? They shouldn't be making you do so much overtime, even if it's just a part-time job. I told you I'm fine. More money is always better. Just keep your opinions to yourself. By then, Robert had stopped using my name and just called me you. When we got married, I thought he would speak to me kindly and more often, but it seemed like harsh words were all I heard from him. His once gentle voice had turned rough, and he started drinking a lot. Sometimes his voice even sounded hoarse, which worried me because voice acting requires a healthy throat. But it seemed like he didn't want to hear about it. He started avoiding talking to me, and eventually he would ignore me even when we were in the same room. That's when Ashley called me. She said she had something important to discuss. So I suggested we meet up since I had my own worries. We decided to meet at a karaoke booth so we could talk privately. Ashley seemed really cautious and picked a room where she could see the counter and staff from the door. You chose this room specifically? Yes, I wanted a spot where the staff could see if there was a suspicious person outside our door. A suspicious person? Is that related to what you wanted to discuss? Ashley nodded in response to my question. She had been feeling like someone was following her ever since she left her job about a month ago. Now, she even felt followed on her days off. The reason she chose a room where the staff could easily see was that she thought the person stalking her might try to eavesdrop on our conversation. Did you talk to the police about it? I tried, but since there's no actual contact, they can't do much. What about your boyfriend? He's coming back in a month. I thought I'd discuss it with him too, but I wanted to first talk to you, someone close by. I see. Ashley hadn't gotten a good look at her stalker because she was too scared, so she didn't know if it was a man or a woman. I decided to keep an eye out from a distance to identify the person stalking her, and through that, I came to understand who it was. Though I couldn't bring myself to discuss my troubled relationship with Robert, looking back, maybe it was for the best, because the one following my best friend Ashley was none other than my husband Robert. He would claim he had to work late every day, but after his shift, he would hang around near Ashley's workplace and follow her when she left. I couldn't believe that the person scaring Ashley was someone so close to me. When I found out, I was shocked, and the expression on Robert's face as he followed Ashley was chilling. He had this creepy, unsettling grin. I fell in love with and married this man, but the moment I saw his true face, the love I thought would last forever turned cold. I told Ashley the truth and urged her to move right away. With the help of her colleagues, she arranged for someone to drive her from the underground parking lot to her new place for a while. After we took these precautions, Robert's frustration grew, and one day, it boiled over. My parents are going to live here, so you need to go back to your parents' house. I was shocked by Robert's sudden demand, but he seemed convinced he was being reasonable. If you have a problem with that, then I'm fine with divorcing you, he said, starting to lose his temper. Even though I had my own issues with him and had considered divorce, I didn't think he could just kick me out of our home. I'm the one paying $1,800 for our monthly expenses. I wonder if Robert even remembers that. When I gave him a skeptical look, he got angry. Just leave already. My parents can't move in if you're still here. Why do I have to leave? I don't understand at all. But I said, okay, I'll take everything I bought with me. Seeing me agree, Robert just told me to hurry up and walked away. I immediately contacted a local buyback service. The next day, they came to our apartment. At first, Robert smirked, thinking I was leaving. But when he saw the workers assessing all our furniture and appliances, his eyes widened in shock. After the evaluation was done, except for what was in Robert's room, a staff member handed me a quote, saying, "The total value is $22,000. I quickly signed, saying, "Okay, sell it all." Suddenly, Robert snapped back to reality and grabbed my arm. Why are you selling everything? My parents are going to live here. How can they if there's no furniture? I shook off his grip. What do you mean? When we got married, you told me you were broke because you were paying for your acting classes. You asked me to handle the rent, furniture, and living expenses. I never knew you were that broke. I feel deceived. Remember the $1,800 I've been covering every month? From now on, you'll pay that. And with your parents moving in, I bet it'll be even more. Robert went pale, but he quickly tried to regain his composure. You thought talking about money would make me cancel the divorce? Who do you think you are? I've already gotten close to a rich lady, he said, striking a pose. But then I remembered Robert following Ashley recently. If what he considered getting close was his stalking behavior, then he was seriously deluded. Ashley came from a wealthy family. Her grandfather was a businessman, and now her father had taken over. Ashley truly was the perfect heiress, but she didn't flaunt it. She spent money like me and our friends, and no one judged her based on her family's wealth. However, Robert seemed to have found out about Ashley's wealthy background and decided she'd be a better match. Could he possibly think that if two people are the same age, the wealthier one is better? That infuriated me. But Ashley would never marry Robert. Her high school boyfriend, whom she'd been dating for years, was coming back to the States soon. They would likely get married. I mentioned how Ashley felt really creeped out because someone had been stalking her every day. When Robert heard that Ashley found him creepy and that they weren't close, he was shocked. I always walked Ashley home, he said. You're lucky I didn't call the police, I replied. But I didn't know she had a boyfriend. He's been away. She'd pick me over someone she doesn't know. They've been writing letters since they were kids and talk almost every day. And unlike you, who's only had part-time jobs, her boyfriend is successful. Even her dad likes him. Robert looked really sad when I said all that. But when the people came to take away our stuff, he seemed to feel better. I guess you're all I've got now. You'll always support my dream of being a voice actor, won't you? He asked, trying to look cool. I gave him a cold stare and said sorry. I've already started divorce proceedings. Let's talk through our lawyers from now on. Robert, maybe thinking I still liked him, held on to me. Don't say that. Haven't we been getting along all this time? Getting along? When? Since you found out my best friend Ashley is rich, you've been distant and hanging out with her. Right after we got married, I realized I made a mistake. Robert started crying, even though he's older than me. Seeing him cry like a kid made me like him even less. I couldn't stand being near him anymore. Stop it. Oh, I also told your uncle we're getting divorced. Your uncle? You know he's tough, right? Well, I've been paying all the rent and bills until now. When I told your uncle I might leave, he said he'd make you work for him. That means I can't keep studying voice acting. You hardly practice anyway. Maybe it's time to face reality. And if you go near Ashley again, I'll call the police. Goodbye. I left, determined not to turn back. For now, I'll stay with my parents, but I might move closer to work if I find a good place. As for Robert, his uncle made him work at his company just like he said he would. Then Robert's parents, who were planning to live off him after he married Ashley, also moved in. They all ended up working for the uncle. It seems like taking advantage of people runs in their family. I'm just glad I got away from that toxic situation. Age doesn't matter much, but I'll be more careful choosing my next partner. On a brighter note, after things settled with Robert, Ashley invited me to her wedding. She introduced me to her long-term boyfriend, and I truly wished them happiness. My marriage didn't work out, but I hope Ashley's lasts a long time.